Silence. What just happened in the last few seconds? All of you, I see you paying attention. Well, if you search Google for terms speaking up, see 15 million results about half a second. About 15 million results. And yet I contend most of what we know about speaking up is either incomplete or misleading, sometimes even entirely balanced. So my goal here in the next 15 minutes is to walk you through just two foundational principles of speaking up, just two, which form the bedrock of every successful communication theory you've ever heard of. Embrace them, you'll find yourself speaking up much more effectively. Not only that, influencing much more effectively as well. Let's get started. The first principle of speaking up is actually contrary to what looks on the surface. It's actually not about speaking up at all. It's about listening. Listening to understand. Listening to find a common ground. Listening to hear what's unheard. Let me tell you a story. A few years back, I was in a board meeting in which we had recently tobacco on an ad campaign, and we invited a brand new ad executive that we hired. She was about to present a new ad strategy. Now, a company that I was part of back then had, let's say, very straight shooters in terms of executives. We didn't hold back. We were really loud in expressing our discontent if we didn't really like the idea. It was Thursday morning, 9 o'clock. Brittany, that executive that we recently hired, we brought to launch a new product. 2 months. Walked into the room. We were sitting in, started presenting slides. Right from the second slide itself, you could see the conversation going downhill. Every one of us had an opinion. Some of them were loud, some of them were actually shutting down the idea, some of actually just said that this is contrary to what our company values are. As she moved through our presentation, discontent among the group. All shutting down the ideas one after another, because we were recently coming out of major loss. Revenue for major soaring of ad campaign that we had. So, about 15 minutes in, Brittany put down her clicker, and she just absolutely went silent. Absolutely silent. In about a few moments, that silence caught up to the executives, including myself and the brand lead and the strategy lead and the folks around the room. As she looked at us, she leaned forward and she asked, "What would it take for an ad to be successful?" She just asked one line question. And Kathy, who was our brand lead at that time, she said, "Listen. We want the ads to listen." So that's what she did. She put down her clicker and she had the room started talking. She deliberately started taking notes of every point that was made, actually acknowledging some of the points. Within 10 minutes, she turned our critics to co-creators. Within minutes, it completely changed the conversation, the course of the conversation, and the outcome of that conversation. We went off that conversation with an agreement on what we would launch, how we would launch, and which videos we would partner with. What did she do? She just listened. She gave time to the room to come up with a solution that they already knew were there. She just wanted space for the solutions, for the dialogues to emerge. That's what we all need to do. Listen more intently. Let's go to the second principle of speaking up. The second principle of speaking up is that speaking up is more about asking right questions, deep questions, questions that ignite curiosity, rather than speaking up itself. We have been trained in our media, through our culture, that speaking up somehow means being loud, being assertive, even borderline confrontational. We have somehow been ingrained in thinking that speaking up is somehow an art of projecting your voice, coming up with crafty arguments, or my favorite, which sells the most, art of removing fear of public speaking. My dear friends, you've got news for you. Speaking up has got more to do with asking and having courage to ask the questions that needs to be asked. Because questions fundamentally are invitations for dialogues. Questions fundamentally signal out to the other side that you want to be witness to their opinions, to their perspectives, that they matter. Questions create narratives, and narratives create influence, which is all what we are seeking in speaking. That's all. If you don't believe me, history is a witness to what I'm saying. Luminaries, biggest academicians, biggest scientists have said this for centuries altogether. Socrates, one of the biggest thinkers known to mankind, is actually known more for asking impactful questions and delivering fancy lectures. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists ever known to mankind, said, never stop asking questions. Nor in the Far East, there's a Chinese proverb for millennia altogether that said, if you ask a question, you're a fool for 5 minutes. But if you never ask one, you're a fool forever. Now, these luminaries were separated by cultures apart, millennia apart, but they all had a common denominator in the messaging that they were sharing. That is, questions open possibilities that statements, bold statements, just cannot. Now, it turns out speaking up also has a cultural perception problem. We have been just fed with so much wrong language and visuals over the years that we fundamentally do not really understand what speaking up really all means. Let's do a fun exercise. I want you guys to just close your eyes for 5 seconds, just 5 seconds. And imagine, just imagine, who do you imagine when I say someone speaking up? Who do you see? A protester with a megaphone? A whistleblower with making bold statements on television channels? Or an executive pushing fiercely in a boardroom meeting? See, that's the problem. That's the problem. We have been fed up with the wrong notion of speaking up all along. Don't you think that nurse who really questioned that medication for a patient wasn't speaking up? Think about it. Don't you think that grandma who said, what's behind that fake smile? What's going on? And asked the grandchild about what's really going on and what is she going through. Isn't that speaking up? What about that elementary school teacher who, in the chaos, can figure out one child who's sitting quiet and ask him or her, what's going on? How can I help? Don't you really think that's speaking up? Of course it is. And so, it is a cultural perception problem that has propagated over decades, over years altogether. And we have been walking the wrong ladder. Look at how our culture actually celebrates speaking up. The movies sort of glamorize the characters who give fiery speeches, and within seconds after that, situation changes. Our social media really propagates the most provocative voices. That's how the algorithms are designed. And our business schools teach executive presence as if showing up and owning up the room is the hallmark of speaking up. And volume actually equals impact. It's all wrong. We've all been auditioning the wrong movie. And we all are guilty of that to some degree. It's because we didn't knew any better. So let me come to some actual points which can bring these principles to practice. The first practice I suggest is lead with curiosity, not certainty, not conclusions. Because curiosity is fundamentally the way you have people open up to you. On surface, these concepts look very, very, very simple to absorb. But underneath, it's a radically different framework how you approach conversations, how you have the other side open up, how you empathize with them, how you understand them, how you try to find a common ground. That's number one. Number two, try to give spaces, deliberate silence, deliberate time to reflect during your conversations. What do I mean by that? During conversations, we all try to speak way too quickly, try to make a million points, while the other side just do not get off. How many of you have had situations in which you spoke something too fast and someone just, what was that again? What do you say? Can you read that again? Happened, right? Try influencing 1,000 people in a rally with that tone. Or try to win a major deal in a boardroom with that tone. The point is simple. You need to give strategic space, strategic, deliberate pauses during your conversations for other side to reflect on what's going on. I'll give you an example. One of our well-known justices, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was no more with us, but was a Supreme Court justice. When she used to argue cases, she used to give deliberate strategic pauses after every important point she used to make. Deliberate strategic long pauses after every main argument that she used to make. And when one reporter finally got hold of her and asked her, why do you give so much time after the arguments? You could just use your time to give a rebuttal or give more arguments or make your case stronger. She said, part of winning arguments is making deep, insightful, winning arguments and then have their weight feel for the justices to absorb and have dialogue get started. Powerful, very powerful. So as I come to close, I want to revisit where I started. Silence. And in that silence, I want you to reimagine, just reimagine how our boardrooms would look like if our executives, instead of pushing their agenda, would actually listen more deeply, would empathize, try to find a common ground. How our dinner tables would look like if our kids were actually encouraged to ask questions rather than making bold statements, which they actually done from social media anyways. Just imagine how our public discourse would look like if our leaders, instead of trading blames, would just empathize, listen deeply, and actually lead with curiosity and try to find a common ground. Where would this lead? Where would that lead this nation? So if you don't take anything else from this talk, just take this one thing. Silence is the key for effective conversation. Because that will make you an effective listener, that will make you a curious listener, that will help you find the common ground, that will help the other side understand you more effectively because they will have time to reflect on where you're coming from. It is the key. So my dear friends, embrace it, lead with curiosity, lead with questions, because questions are fundamentally dialogue openers. And finally, take strategic pauses, because that gives the other side time to reflect. And that changes the course of the conversations. That changes narratives. That creates influence